Hi all.
Hi, Oleg.
Hi. Just a second, I'll be back in.
Hi all. If you would like to add your names to the docs for the meeting agenda, that would be great. Welcome to the Interop SIG.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you want to share, I can stop sharing or I can continue sharing, up to you. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, Fatih, you can keep going. That's great.
Okay, yeah, you can share the screen.
Great, I think we can get started.
Yeah.
Fatih, we'll go over our action items first, just to make sure we're all up on our tasks. Fatih has moved the roadmap to GitHub via APR. Fatih, I think you did this yesterday, is that right? Or earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's up.
It was yesterday.
Great, and then Tracy's to take the roadmap. Thank you for putting the link. That's perfect. Tracy will take the roadmap to read only. I'll ping her to remind her just to make sure it's done, but that's not.
I think she did that because when I sent the PR, I commented on the document and now I can't edit the document. So she probably took it to read only.
Already. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And I've updated the workstream governance with information on starting a new workstream. But if anyone would like to add to that, please feel free to open an issue or make a PR. And then, Fatih, where are we at with Dan Lopez and with the CDF, the recordings and storing of meeting notes?
I think this is still open in progress. I haven't got any. Yeah, Jackie said she's working on it. So let's see when she can update the meeting call.
Yeah, I think she has a lot going on, as we all do.
Yeah.
So. Good.
And the last one, I think, Emil, Ramin, Andreas, you got the recordings stored on some YouTube channel, or I think this is done, yeah?
Actually, I don't know where those recordings went. It seems like our workstream meetings are recorded, but I don't really know where they end up. Does anyone else know? Marky, Ramin?
I
I only
do not.
know where the first one ended up, and that was I ended up uploading it to the
Yeah.
CDF shared storage, the link that I was given, and that was that.
Right, and I think there's no other recordings in that storage right now, so
And
they
there's
must
no
have not worked.
automation for automatic uploading.
I had thought it was done automatically as well, but this is maybe wrong. No.
I don't
Maybe
think they are unmuted at least. So.
one of you can comment under that issue to see where they end up, if they end up somewhere, so Jackie could point to that place.
I'll
Sure.
take that as an action item because I think I know exactly what needs to be done if it hasn't already.
Great, thank
so-
you.
But I don't think Jackie can actually do it. I think the Linux Foundation has to do it because they are the ultimate owners of the account. Let me take
So-
that action item.
Yeah, I put your name, Marky, there. So Marky to check with Jackie.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I think that was all action items. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Fatih, did you want to discuss the SIG roadmap in the repo?
Yeah, because when I worked on the roadmap stored on Google Docs, I found some of the outdated stuff because when we started the roadmap, we put the thoughts based on where we were at that time. And while I was moving the roadmap to SIG repo from the Google Docs, I made some updates, like rearranged the, the things like when it comes to the knowledge transfer and some other stuff we are doing, like workstream setup. They weren't on the document. So what I did was I simply dumped the outdated version to a markdown document and then did the update in both places. So the document on Google Doc and the markdown file, they were synced before Trace took it to read only. Let me quickly show what updates I've done. Where can I see the file? So pull requests, yeah, not this one, sorry, wrong one. Yeah, this is the pull request. I've simply put some quick links there. So the overview, charter, outcomes, and this part, the graph remains same. Simply, I added Flagger, Tecton Catalog, and Hub and Argo rollouts as the completed knowledge transfer projects. And then I included Jenkins FileRunner, which we will have a presentation today. And the two other ones we have in the backlog, Spinnaker and Lighthouse, as the things we are doing now because they're already scheduled. And end user case study from Ramin is in the backlog as well. On top of that, the things we discussed last couple of weeks, like identifying focus areas, I've moved it to now part because we already started working with it with two of the areas like events in CI/CD and reusable libraries. So they are what we are working with at the moment. In addition to that, establishing work streams is also what we are working right now. And that is also included here with the link to the document Kara created for workstream governance. And the rest is simply moved to next, like establishing shared vocabulary terminology. And this is different than the previous one. The previous one was simply capturing what the tools and technologies are using, like this Rosetta Stone. And since this is a bit like bigger work, bigger item to actually establish a shared terminology, starting with if it is viable to do that, what we need to do, like do we need some kind of standardization and so on in the vocabulary terminology. And it's under next. And based on the work stream setup, additional focus areas and additional work could be done as next steps under the SIG. And some of the examples are put there, and they are just examples. It doesn't mean we are going to work with those, but to just give an idea to others who are looking at the roadmap to see what kind of areas we could potentially work in future. And Kara, you already mentioned something during previous meetings, so it could either go under this part, or you can update the roadmap and highlight that area and work stream as happening right now. And finally, standardized frameworks. So all those things like Andreas and Emil mentioned within the document is put under next. And later part is event standardizations, which is currently empty because we don't know what that really means at the moment. And finally, the contributors. And I populated this list based on the people edited the Google Doc, commented directly on the Google Doc, or provide comments during the past meetings. I went through the meeting minutes and put the names here. I might have missed some people, so if you think you should have been listed here, please add your name. I just want to include this part because when we move from Google Docs, we lose who contributed to the document, and it is difficult to find out who contributed to it by looking at meeting minutes. I just want to acknowledge these people as people who contributed to the document. So that's what I've done. It wasn't like a big job, but we simply moved the document from the Google Docs, and it is currently open for comments. And you can either share your comments directly on the PR, or you can directly update the document if you are a maintainer. So we will keep it open until perhaps the next meeting, and then we can merge it in if there is no major objection. Any questions, comments about this?
No, it looks great. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
one maybe a specific question about the terminology updates and alignments. Currently in the Jenkins project, we are working on cleaning up obsolete terminology. And if there are short-term plans to do this terminology cleanup, I believe it would be great to collaborate with the SIG on this front to ensure that everything is aligned properly.
Yeah, so it's like, I think that is here. Like if you change some of the terms you are using within Jenkins community, you can send a pull request updating this. No, so this the first part, as you have seen, it just lists what the tools or projects are using at the moment. So you can do that anyways. But the tricky part is the shared vocabulary. And once you settle with the work within Jenkins community, and once others also show interest to this part, we can start working on this as well. So. And yeah, that's it for the roadmap. Unless anyone has any questions. Not, I have a question to anyone. Like, should we somehow make this like roadmap once we merge it in, like somehow get help from CDF and get a blog post and article written about it, so we make it visible to others who might not be aware of this work?
I'm a +1 for that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Okay. So then during the next meeting, then we can ask for people to step up for it, because like it is better others also take part in these things, and then we discuss who can work writing that article. Okay, then that's all for this item. Kara, back to you.
Okay. Next is the work streams. It's very similar to last week. We're just updating how you would the process by which you would propose a work stream, and we wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So basically, you just make a PR to the SIG Interoperability repo, and we've given a little bit of instructions on how to do so. Very simple. You just put it within its own directory, and the directory should have a README stating, what your work stream will be focusing on, what are its goals, maybe who are its members, things like that. We do want to keep it quite simple. And then please do mention in our agenda for this meeting, these SIG meetings, what you're proposing, and then we can discuss it further. And that's a great way to raise awareness about the work streams that you're proposing as well. so you can get feedback and you can, you know, grow your collaboration for it. So it's very good. If anyone has any questions about this process, you can ask me, or any edits you would like to make, or, you know, any questions.
Actually, I'm looking for that roadmap document. Is that is under the docs directory, is it?
Well, it is still a pull request, so you need to click
Oh,
the
still a
pull
pull
request.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we give people to review the document, time to review the document.
Got it.
But it will end up under docs as roadmap.md next
Okay.
to the others. Yeah.
And because the work streams are going to be run by the people who are involved in them, I mean, really it's limitless. So if you have something that you would like to work on and you think it would fit within the interoperability SIG, please don't hesitate to propose it. We do want a varied number of work streams and like varied topics. Like this should be a whole laboratory of like ideas that are fomenting and that we share together. So I'm quite excited with what people may come up with for the work streams.
So it could be actually a place for, hi, Max here. Could be a place for the, well, how to say, idea about these whole robot stuff, for example.
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely. Good. So if there are no many more questions on that, we can have Oleg present now, who's going to present on Jenkins File Runner.
Stop sharing.
Okay. So just a second, I'll share my screen. Okay. Sorry. Okay, now I'm ready. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I will do a quick introduction to the Jenkins File Runner project we run in the Jenkins community. During this presentation, please feel free to interrupt me and ask questions at any moment. So I don't want to run a formal presentation. If you have any questions, just ask in any moment, and if needed, I will be switching and showing more details. Who has already heard about Jenkins File Runner on this call? I definitely know that James has heard about that, and Tracy, maybe Marky.
I have.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so quick summary of what Jenkins File Runner is. It's a tool which allows running Jenkins Jenkins pipelines as containers or as just JVM images in any environment. So it means that you can take Jenkins File Runner and run it, for example, as a CLI tool, or you can run it as a container step within Tecton or within your CI/CD system. And its main purpose to actually execute Jenkins pipelines. So it's quite simple. And I will talk how to do that and how to package that. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Oleg Ninashev. I'm a Jenkins core maintainer and governance board member. I work for CloudBees as principal software engineer in the community team, focusing on open source initiatives. And I'm also a CDF ambassador. So really quick introduction to Jenkins, because I guess everybody knows it on the call. So it's the most popular automation server. It's widely used in CI/CD. It's fully open source. It includes more than 1,700 plugins. It has a huge community. Last year we had more than 5,000 contributors to the Jenkins project. Jenkins project keeps evolving and addressing modern use cases. So if you used Hudson or Jenkins, let's say around 2011, you may have hit various common problems. So Jenkins basically needs a lot of configuration. It comes as a framework, so you cannot use it out of the box. It's quite difficult to configure it sometimes because there is a lot of plugins which you have to install. Then you need to configure them. Then you need to fix compatibility issues if they happen. Architecturally wise, it has limited scalability because it has a centralized master instance. Sometimes upgrades are painful, and also a lot of maintenance is required. So Jenkins itself, it's let's say it's a second generation CI/CD tool for me. It included a lot of various enhancements. It's what pushed CI to become an industry standard. At the same time, architecturally wise, if you're using Jenkins in 2011, it was quite dated, and some users still use Jenkins like that. At the same time, Jenkins has changed a lot since that times. For example, in the pipeline as code, you can fully define jobs as code, and you can use various ways for that. It can be Groovy DSL, it can be YAML. It also supports system configuration as code, so you can configure entire system, including infrastructure, including pipelines. You can use the same deployment approaches, for example, GitOps for deployments, and there are tools available for that. Also, it includes a lot of new plugins and integrations, same as before. Jenkins provides plugins for almost every development tool you may want to use in your projects. And now it includes modern packaging. So, for example, it has official Docker images, it has official Helm charts, it also has Jenkins Kubernetes operator, which is becoming more popular these days. We just had an online meetup recently, and there will be another online meetup next week about Jenkins operator. And also Jenkins is available on public cloud, so there are distributions for them. For every cloud, there is a lot of plugins addressing these use cases, and Jenkins provides a pretty diverse set of components, and you can run it everywhere without being connected to specific SCM, specific public cloud. So for any environment, there is a lot of tools available in Jenkins. At the same time, architecturally, Jenkins didn't change much since 2011. There will be a lot of improvements here and there, but in principle, Jenkins is still a centralized master, which acts as a pipeline orchestrator, pipeline engine, and UI at the same time. So it includes multiple instances, which are commonly separated in modern CI/CD systems. It can connect different agents for executions. They can be permanently connected, or they can be connected on demand and provisioned by the cloud. Again, Jenkins has facilities for provisioning these agents. But the central point, again, is Jenkins master. So yeah, it's still a single point of failure. It has no real high availability at the moment. It has all issues of a huge project with a lot of runtime. So maintaining Jenkins masters may be difficult. And even if there is a lot of tools for doing that, this is still a key part of architecture. And starting from 2016, we were actually discussing how to change that. There were a lot of improvements. And actually, one of the ideas we had on the table is, what if we flip the table? And what if we say that instead of Jenkins master, instead of this single instance, we would be provisioning this master instance on demand? So basically, if we would be provisioning orchestrators, if you would be provisioning pipeline engines on demand, and actually it's quite possible with the project I'm presenting today. So yes, this is a Jenkins file runner. Jenkins file runner is incubating some project within the Jenkins organization. So you can find this GitHub repository. I'll just show it. So you can find it within the Jenkins main GitHub organization. There are also other repositories for implementations, but this is a route where you can find all the documentation. There is a lot of demos available in this repository. And if you want to start using that, it's probably your starting point for that. This project was started by Kosaki in 2018. By now it has had 37 contributors just for the core, maybe several dozen small contributors to implementations, and currently it's in beta. So what it means that it's still an incubating project. There is a lot of fixes and improvements we would like to deliver before it becomes a GA. At the same time, it already has reference implementations, and it's been actively used by Jenkins users and by early adopters who want to build alternate architectures based on Jenkins. So just to quickly explain what is Jenkins File Runner. Again, yeah, this is a simple engine which runs pipelines and then shuts down. So it's basically designed for being used as files. It can be run everywhere. It supports Java 8 and Java 11. It has Docker images. So if you can run a container, if you just can run JVM in your environment, then you can use Jenkins File Runner. It's highly optimized for these use cases. So it starts up in milliseconds or in seconds, depending on your configuration. And actually, this startup time can be optimized a lot more. Okay, demo will be a bit later. So how it operates? It takes your Jenkins file. It also takes pass to workspace. For example, if you have your prepared workspace, you can just pass it to it with all checkout repositories, which is quite convenient. For example, if you use external orchestrator engine, or if you want to run it Tecton. And also you provide configurations you would like to use. So it's reference to Word file, reference to plugins, the settings you would like to use. And then Jenkins File Runner just does execution. It exposes all outputs to std out, std err. It can also modify workspace during the execution, and it can connect to external storages. So what it means that, for example, if you publish your artifacts to Artifactory or other repository, you can do that using plugins. You can similarly save logs, save metadata, and basically save all the results of your builds as you can do with classic Jenkins. It has a quite simple CLI. So basically you pass a path to the Jenkins file, you pass workspace. So as presented before, you pass plugins. And this is the minimum configuration you need to get it running. Also, there are some advanced options. For example, you can specify custom Jenkins home directory. For example, if you share your configurations, you can pass workspace. You can parameterize your pipelines similarly to Jenkins. Parameterization supported. You can also pass meta information, for example, build number, name of job, causes. So it's needed if you want to integrate with wider ecosystem. For example, if you want to implement pull request builder, if you want to trace build execution externally, you can pass this data so that Jenkins abstracts from that. And also, if you're experienced Jenkins pipeline user, you may be well aware about the pipeline sandbox, because Jenkins file naturally is a Groovy DSL. Well, we support YAML as well now, but Groovy DSL, and obviously to prevent escaping from the sandbox, there is a lot of security checks, and there is additional security layer. And in Jenkins File Runner, this layer can be disabled, and actually it makes users extremely happy when they want to run complex pipelines. In Docker, it's even more easy. You can just run a container and get the result. And actually, this is what I am going to show you. So I will just run a short demo live. Again, this is a demo which can be extracted from the repository. So demo declarative pipeline. So let's see what we have in this demo. Basically, we have README file and we have Jenkins file. So this demo is really simple. Let me show it to you. So this is a pipeline we are going to execute, and basically this is hello world. So nothing to be proud of. And yeah, I'll just execute that to save time. Full disclaimer, currently I'm running on Windows. I'm running with 2 virtual machines connected because it's a Windows subsystem for Linux. It's also Docker, and it's Zoom on the top of that. So it's extremely slow. If I am not connected to Zoom, it executes just in a few seconds.
Now, if it works, I'm going to be disappointed.
Well, let's see.
Don't want to jinx it.
Okay, so it started execution. So basically it merges startup logs and pipeline execution logs in the same output. Again, you can connect external log storage in Jenkins. For example, you can forward this log to AWS CloudWatch, to Fluentd, and what Logstash. But yeah, this is just minimum implementation, which shows the execution pipeline and then exits with success. And yeah, that's the principle. So you can just invoke it as a CLI tool. There are more complex demos, and I will show them later. But yeah, this is how Jenkins File Runner works in principle. Any questions so far? Okay, there is basically the same recording in GIF. If you're interested to see more demos, they're available in the demo repository. So there are demos, for example, for using pipeline libraries, for using configuration as code, for using various constructors, also using Git Maven stacks if you want to just build something. So you can take these demos. And there are more complex demos, and we will talk about them later. Okay, moving on. So obviously, Jenkins File Runner is not a silver bullet. It has a lot of their own limitations. And the first thing you need to know that Jenkins File Runner is not a CI/CD solution on its own. It's a pipeline execution engine, and you need to connect it to other components, for example, to Orchestrator, to Web UI, to storage in order to get CI/CD system. So in such case, it's pretty similar to Tecton. And yeah, you basically take webhook receivers, you take triggers which invoke this pipeline, prepare a workspace for execution, then you need log services, you need result storage and web UI, and only after you glue these components together, you get CI/CD system. And this is basically how it's implemented. There are also some limitations you need to know about. So firstly, Jenkins File Runner is not 100% Jenkins. It has a lot of architectural limitations, and the biggest limitation is that it has no runtime. So it means that, for example, if you want to throttle builds, if you want to parallelize build, manage resources like Jenkins can do it out of the box, you will need to find alternate solutions. At the same time, it's pretty compatible when we talk about plugin ecosystem, execution engines, etc. So the majority of pipelines can run out of the box. Another important limitation that it has no web UI by default. So if you want to watch test results, etc., you will either need to use a pipeline step and plugin which uploads it to external storage, for example, to TestRail, or we'll need to process workspace where you get JUnit report or something like that, but there is no Jenkins UI by default at the moment. Also, there is no cross-master communication and other architectural tweaks available in the classic Jenkins, just because there is no UI, there is no REST API exposed, so these tricks cannot work out of the box on the instance. Also, architecturally, it has a relatively slow agent connection performance because it currently doesn't support sidecar containers. And it means that to provision an agent in Kubernetes, etc., it can totally do that, but sometimes it takes, let's say, 10 seconds. So to start a Jenkins File Runner, you spend 1 second and then 10 seconds to connect the engine to start executing pipeline. It's not something we would like to see, and hopefully we will be able to improve it in the future. But in principle, it works as is. And the main advantage of that is not the system. The main advantage of that is like that. Because instead of having a single Jenkins master, you can have multiple Jenkins File Runner instances. These instances can be different, so they can be fine-tuned for your needs. For example, they can have different configurations, different plugin sets, different security configurations. So instead of managing a single instance, actually you get a lot of flexibility to manage your Jenkinses as code and to build them as you need. Speaking of building Jenkins, yeah, the problem with Jenkins File Runner is not running that. Yeah, I've shown a cool demo which executes hello world, but definitely it's not something how you expect to use this tool. You rather expect to run a complex pipeline for your continuous integration or continuous delivery use cases, and Jenkins File Runner can totally do that. We provide two implementations. So first one is vanilla. It's basically a common distribution available within Jenkins File Runner repository. It includes common plugins, for example, pipeline, Git player, plugins and other tools which are commonly used. You can just extend this image at your additional tools, at your additional plugins, and get them running. And for advanced use cases, there is also custom work packager. This is a tool which allows packaging custom distributions, and this is a tool which you will need for 95% of real cases. So basically, it allows to produce Docker images using custom YAML specification. So this YAML specification takes a base image, it takes a specification for core and plugins, it takes configuration as code. So basically everything is described as a single file or as a set of files, and then custom work package just takes it rebuilds Jenkins file runner code base to optimize for performance. And after that, it produces a ready-to-fly image. So when you start it, all configurations are embedded, and it means that you don't need to configure anything. Jenkins file runner just starts executing your configuration. And again, thanks to optimization for performance, it actually starts up really quickly. So this is how the tooling works. There are also implementations, for example, for image controller, when basically you can build images right on demand by specifying CRD with this YAML file and getting your images on demand, which is quite handy. And there is more work on that in the future. So regarding usage examples, I will show a few examples today for custom work packager. So one of common examples which I show is CI Jenkins IO runner. So the main purpose of this repository is show CI Jenkins IO. Jenkins continuous integration and continuous delivery runs on Jenkins. No surprises there. And the CI Jenkins IO runner actually allows to emulate this instance and to perform local development. And here you can see a number of files. For example, there is packager config YAML, which I described, which basically defines the configuration. But here you can see that there are some tweaks because, for example, what we have here, we specify build settings, we specify paths to Jenkins file runner version we use. It's a bit outdated, but it still works well. Also, we specify some system properties in the configuration, but the most of configuration in this particular example comes from external sources, just because it's more convenient for development. So for Groovy hooks implement the most of configuration here, as well as Jenkins configuration as code. So you can find them as separate files. So Jenkins YAML is just a relatively simple YAML which specifies additional environment variables and additional configurations, which are again consumed by Jenkins on startup, and Jenkins gets pre-configured. And for init scripts, we have a lot of additional magic because the code is really not fixed. So depending on the configuration, it configures Jenkins differently. And right now it happens via Groovy scripts. Yeah, they may look terrible, but actually you can even debug them, and you can integrate them with IDE. Okay, what else interesting in this repository? Yeah, you can see that there are Docker files, etc. For plugins, we use POM XML. Why we do that? Because we connect the instance to Dependabot. And all the plugins are automatically updated by Dependabot. And when we provide the configuration, we have Jenkins file in this repository. So we have to automatically build new images. We verify the configuration and test that. So that's why we use POM XML, just to simplify dependency management, which is quite tricky in Jenkins. And we also currently update the bill of materials to make it even more easy. So this is the repository, and this is the most straightforward implementation you can follow. And actually there is a lot of users who take that. And also there is different fast packaging, which you can take as a reference implementation. So for example, for Tecton, there is Steward CI repository maintained by SAP. For GitHub Actions, again, there is native packaging, which allows running Jenkins file runner as GitHub action. Same for CodeShip. For CodeShip, you can use standard Docker images. Also, there are packaging examples for AWS, Lambda, and Project FN, which go beyond Docker images. So they actually split the Jenkins file runner to layers in order to simplify deployment. And yeah, this is what we have in public now. There are also some other implementations in the works. For example, Jenkins file runner as a native image powered by Quarkus. There are also several adopters who actually run Jenkins file runner for various real cases. So for example, SAP created Steward CI. It's a combination of Tecton and Jenkins file runner. So basically they run a pipeline, but they created a cloud native instance using other tools, including ones provided by CDF, and they can use the Jenkins file runner as an engine. Pretty much similar approach was used by Jenkins X in version 1.x. It was using the Knative build and Jenkins file runner again to provide cloud native pipeline execution engine. And James Rawlings was an author of this engine. There is a cool blog post about that. So if you're interested, take a look at that. But yeah, it was replaced by Tecton in version 2.x. So now if you use the standard Jenkins X packaging, you won't be able to find this mod there, but it's still available in GitHub if you want to try it out. Also, GitLab, they created the Jenkins file wrapper. So basically, this is one of the strategy for supporting migration from Jenkins to GitLab. And again, they use Jenkins file runner to that. So you can find some documentation and examples here. So this is some of adoptions which are available on open source. Actually, there is a lot more adoptions. The project got some traction. And yeah, it evolves pretty well, even though it's still in the incubating stage. Any questions, comments so far?
Around plugins, the Jenkins file runner, you mentioned that we can create a Docker image with all the plugins that are required for the Jenkins file that we'll be running. That's possible?
Yeah, that's totally possible. So one example I've shown here. So this is CI Jenkins IO runner. It basically takes packager configuration, and here you can see that it takes POM XML, and actually it takes all the plugins from POM XML. So here you can see plugins which are included in the instance, and the custom word packager. This is a build tool. It will take them and basically prepare a ready-to-fly image with all the plugins embedded.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah, for example, if you take a look at Steward CI, it's basically the same implementation inside. So they use the tools provided by the Jenkins project, and here you can find, for example, a base image. This base image has the same packager config. So, for example, in their case, they manage plugins right inside a YAML configuration file. So again, you can find everything here, and yeah, it's built in.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I will show you a bit more realistic demo. So yeah, I've shown.
I had an idea, just an idea. I wonder if it's one of the things that I thought was quite, a lot of people use a traditional Jenkins UI to manage plugins, I guess. You know, installing and doing updates collectively. I'm wondering if maybe, if somebody was to do that, you could trigger a build, kick off, and generate more of these Jenkins file runner servers automatically, so that you always have, like, you know, it's a way to kind of, you still have your user interface to managing your plugins, which under the hood maybe calls all your code you're doing there.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Actually, there were some experiments with Jenkins file runner Jenkins plugin, which actually does the same. There are also CLI tools like package Jenkins plugin manager, again, which can be used with Jenkins file runner. So there is a lot of things we could do. And for example, for Jenkins configuration as code, we can already export configurations from running instance. There is nothing blocking us from exporting the entire configuration if somebody contributes and implements that.
Exactly, yeah, yeah, cool. Yes.
Okay, let me show you.
Oleg,
Yes?
I had a question, and I don't know if you referenced it, but you mentioned Quarkus, and it was something we were discussing recently. Have you tried running it with Quarkus at all?
Yeah, I'll jump a bit ahead to the roadmap. So in the roadmap, I have native images for Quarkus. And just to explain what I've done, I was already able to build a native image for Jenkins file runner with Quarkus, and it even worked. It got the startup time less than 100 milliseconds. It got a really good memory footprint. But unfortunately, I haven't published this demo yet because, yeah, again, it's just a proof of concept. It's not ready for consumption at the moment. It was long before Quarkus was released as 1.0, so it's not even compatible with the recent version of Quarkus. But I plan to finish that, and I plan to make it available because it's really interesting. And yeah, everything related to GraalVM is interesting, especially when it comes to reflection. Yeah, apparently for Jenkins file runner, it was totally possible to run quite complex pipelines which built Jenkins plugins.
I did a little look at that Quarkus, and that's I mean, my Java skills are very old and rusty, so I was way over my head, to be honest. But it's really quite nice. That they're before compile time, and it could have a massive impact, a good positive impact on running these pipelines with Jenkins and Jenkins file runner. Yeah, that sounds very cool.
Yeah, so Quarkus basically it has two parts, well, three parts. First is JVM. Secondly, it's a cloud native JVM. So basically you can split your application to layers. You can deploy them quickly, in many cases in runtime, and it has native images. So for me, I tried first part and third part, but not cloud native Java per se. So it's still on my list because yeah, it would just require some changes in the Jenkins core to support that. But in principle, it's possible. For example, deploy Jenkins plugin or pipeline libraries image layer quite quickly to production, and also to reduce Docker image footprints. So it's totally possible, and I'm looking forward to implement it at some point.
Sounds great.
Okay, let me show you a real example how you could use Jenkins file runner right now. I'm going to present you Cloud Discord Ship just because I really like this service as a simple deployment, but there is nothing specific to CodeShip in this demo, and you can implement a similar implementation basically anywhere. So in Jenkins, one of the common problems is that there is no popular SaaS offering for Jenkins at the moment. And this is why I started experimenting with CodeShip at some point, because it's provide CI SaaS with native Docker support. So basically, it's a great opportunity to run Jenkins file runner there. And there are also free tiers for open source projects. So it was really interesting to me. It was before GitHub Actions, GA or beta. So, but yeah, if you want, I can show similar demo for GitHub Actions later. So let's try to run Jenkins in CodeShip. Why not? So I will just show you a demo because it's basically the same as on slides. And actually, I want to build a real Jenkins plugin. So there is a Mailer plugin, which is used pretty much on every Jenkins instance, and it's used to send the email notifications, etc. And in this particular example, I will be building it with Jenkins file on CodeShip. And Jenkins file, you may see that it's quite interesting because it actually has one line. This is how we develop Jenkins files in the Jenkins project, because we create common components, and they're based in Jenkins pipeline library. So this Jenkins pipeline library basically includes all the complexity, it includes various checks, and the real execution which we would be using is listed here. So basically it's a parallel execution which can build on Java 8, Java 11 with multiple configurations. It can also run static analysis. It of course runs tests, it publishes results, does some pre-processing, post-processing, parallelization. It can also do continuous delivery of incremental versions. So this is basically what we are running inside. But thanks to custom work packager, again, we don't have to care about that because everything is packaged right inside, including our pipeline library. And actually, our implementation, I have already presented UCI Jenkins file runner, and we will be using it here. So here you can see that the entire CodeShip services. So basically service definition for what we will be executing, I think, and this is 4 lines. So we just take an image provided by customer packager with all tools and all components embedded, and we just pass the workspace as a volume. And the execution is also simple. So CodeShip steps, actually, we just invoke our Jenkins file service, and that's it. So 7 lines of code, and with 7 lines of code and the packaged image, we can actually really execute our pipeline. So I'm going to just add just another line to this file. And what happens next? Yeah, this repository is connected to CodeShip, so it will start executing the build at some point. We can just go to the CodeShip interface. Let's see. So yeah, this is our README IND. Actually, I haven't touched this demo for more than 1 year, but thanks to configuration as code to pin the images, when I tried it today, apparently it still works. So yeah, it's a good advantage of configuration as code. So it might take a while for this execution to start up, because again, I am using free tier, so I'm not exactly the highest priority for the instance. Also, it takes a time to pull image, etc. Let's see how long it takes to start up this time. Usually it's something like 20-ish seconds or so, but it's already beyond 40. So let's see. While it starts up, maybe I'll just show you my recent run, which I executed 2 hours ago. Okay. So it doesn't hurry. Okay, let's take a look here. So this is a real execution. And in this real execution, so you can see that basically we pull the image. After that, you can see that Jenkins starts up. And here you can see that there are some debug entries. So basically they come from initialization logic. It runs Jenkins configuration as code, it runs Groovy hooks, and they get executed before the instance starts up. So we get all the configuration, for example, tools, etc. deployed there. Then we just check out the repository, because this is how our pipeline is written. And after that, we start executing pipeline. So here you can see that we just run a test for Linux, because pipeline library is adjusted in a way to not run Windows images on Jenkins file runner. Right now there is a prototype of Windows Docker image, but it's not runnable on CodeShip. And here we just start executing our pipeline. So you can see that there are timeouts, so there are some more pipeline steps being invoked. And ultimately after that, we configure our environment and just run Maven. So this is what is written in our build plugin. And after that, Maven, again, embedded in the CI Jenkins runner image, executes the entire build. And after some time, it will produce the result. And we also archive artifacts, record fingerprints, but right now in CodeShip, we don't expose that, because CodeShip doesn't support publishing unit tests. But if you use other system, for example, Appear, whatever, you can publish the results. So our pipeline got successfully executed. And if you go to the running instance, you can see that actually it started executing. So yeah, it has already reached testing stage. But yeah, the most of complexity is on the Maven side. So the execution itself is really fast. So this is an example of how could you use Jenkins file runner in your tool. And again, once the instance is packaged with provided tools, it's just a matter of a number of code lines, and you get it running. Okay, any questions?
Are there any limitations on which plugins you can use, or can you pretty much use?
So you can use any plugin. At the same time, some plugins, basically, they do not really do anything specific for Jenkins file runner. So for example, my common go-to example is throttle concurrent builds. You can install it, but it just doesn't do anything on a Jenkins file runner, because there is no concurrent builds today, because concurrent builds happen on high level in different containers and so on. But in principle, Jenkins file runner includes full Jenkins core with some performance optimizations, but it can really run any plugin and it can try to execute any plugin.
Nice.
Yeah, there are some edge cases. For example, there is pipeline input step. Basically, it stops pipeline execution at some point, and requires your input. And you can provide this input via REST API or via Web UI. So by default, it will just hold on Jenkins file runner because you have no UI, you have no REST API. But there is a ticket for providing alternate implementation which should allow doing that just through CLI. So there are some things here and there. So Jenkins file runner is not full Jenkins, but from plugin ecosystem standpoint, it can execute pretty much everything. Okay, yeah, I'll quickly summarize what is Jenkins file runner before we run out of time. Yeah, again, I just presented one instance due to limited time. But for example, if you want to know more, if you want to see Jenkins file runner on Tecton, I can do a presentation later. It works really well. Same for GitHub Actions. Jenkins file runner prototype is available as GitHub Action. There is a Jenkins file runner for Jenkins X 1.x and for other implementations. There are recorded demos. So if you're interested to know more, just ping me. Also, Jenkins file runner can be used for different use cases. For example, with Jenkins, like testing Jenkins pipelines for real integration testing. We created 2 test frameworks based on Jenkins file runner specifically for Jenkins. And these implementations also keep evolving. So just quick takeaways. So Jenkins file as a function is real. So you can take a Jenkins file, you can execute it on your instances. Jenkins can be really executed as fast. You can be integrated in other systems, and you can basically run it everywhere where you can run with Java. And, there are tools for packaging. So there are tools which already resolve complexity. These tools keep improving, and you can easily build your images for your use cases. And there is a lot of demos for that. Obviously, if you want to do continuous delivery, if you want to have cloud native solution, there are alternatives. So for example, for Kubernetes and GitOps, yes, we have Jenkins X, we have Tecton, and you probably don't want to reinvent the wheel there unless you need full compatibility with Jenkins. So for new projects, it's definitely more convenient to use Tecton and Jenkins X. If you need to migrate your Jenkins pipelines, then you can consider Jenkins file runner as one of possible implementations. So there are also migration tools created by Andrew Bayer. Jenkins file runner keeps evolving. Yeah, for me, it's a pet project, but there are also other contributors, and hopefully we will be able to release 1.0 soon. My plan is to have release candidate this summer, well, if everything goes well. And also we are waiting for user feedback because yeah, there is a lot of adopters, and really we need to prove read the implementation. We need to address all the feedback before we go with Jenkins 1.0. I do not plan to hurry with releasing that, and yeah, until it's fully compatible. Also, there are plans to improve user experience and provide more features out of the box. So for example, in near term, I plan to provide Docker images for standard development tools. So in Jenkins X, you had build packs, which supported the Jenkins file runner. We also have build packs on the Jenkins side for agents. And I want to have something like that for Jenkins file runner. And ideally, I want to provision these tools as sidecar containers to reduce the image sizes. In principle, it's possible, but it still needs to be implemented. Also, I want to improve startup performance. Jenkins file runner was really fast until I include declarative pipeline. Declarative pipeline has some interesting implementations in terms of extension initializations. It's not a problem for classic Jenkins instance, but for Jenkins file runner, which is supposed to start up in a second or so, it becomes a problem. And there is a lot of opportunities to improve performance by extra caching. And yeah, with Quarkus, it's even more possibilities. So let's see where it goes. And I also want to provide Kubernetes native packaging tools. So right now, customer packager uses Docker build. I want to have Kaneka. I also want to support CRD mode, just to provide the Jenkins file runner packager as a build service. And I want to have native support for Kubernetes and Tekton, so that there would be packaging inside the Jenkins file runner repository, which provides foundation for using Jenkins file runner in Kubernetes ecosystem. And yeah, in the future, there is a lot of stuff. I just listed native images and sidecar containers, but of course, there are zillions of ideas I would like to implement. And well, I'm not zillions hours available for that. But if you want to contribute, it's actually a great time. So all the code base for Jenkins file runner is open source. You can find Jenkins file runner again in its GitHub repository. And also, you can find a lot of issues reported. If you hit something, please let us know. There are some good first issues. So if you want to try implementing something, you can totally do that. And I will be happy to review and integrate your pull requests. And yeah, most importantly, any feedback will be appreciated, and any use cases, case studies would definitely be interesting for me before we go with 1.0. Okay, that's all from me. And if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, no more questions, but that was great.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, thanks very much, Oleg. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent demo, Oleg. Very thorough, very good. It was excellent. It was my first time seeing Jenkins file runner. It was very, very cool.
Yeah, I hope to present it at Jenkins Cloud Native SIG maybe in 2 weeks or so. We have restarted Cloud Native SIG in May after maybe 6 months of a break. And we already discussed a lot of topics which are potentially subject to interoperability SIG. For example, next week we plan to have a demo of Jenkins, of Tekton trigger plugin for Jenkins. So basically triggering and executing Tekton pipelines within Jenkins. If you're interested, please join us. And of course, we will be happy to present it the interoperability SIG later once the implementation gets more finalized. And yeah, Jenkins as tool, its main power of integrating with all other tools. So hopefully there is a lot of opportunities for interoperability with other CDF and non-CDF CI/CD projects there.
Excellent. Good SIG meeting today. Fatih, did you have anything else you wanted to add or ask?
No, it was great. Thanks, Oleg. Yeah.
Thank you too, and thanks for your feedback.
Yep, good. We're just past the hour, so I suppose we should wrap up now. But please do add items to the agenda if you'd like to discuss anything for our next SIG meeting. And I believe you all have access to the, or you could just ping us on the Slack, but we do have a doc for future presentation proposals. So we are always looking for interesting proposals at presentations. So please do suggest some if you have some. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Good presentation, Oleg.
Thank
Bye.
you. Goodbye.
Bye.